Okay, I would like to talk about a little bit about the context of the Korean War, so at least you know what is happening. All right, if you haven't already watched the YouTube video, I believe you should watch it. Just very quickly, what are the kind of sources you will get in the Korean War? So basically, the story first. We start with the story. If you already know the story and your context is very strong, then you don't need to watch this video. But if you are totally lost on what is happening in this story, then please watch this video. So we have the little island nation of Korea, looks something like this, divided along the 38th parallel. All right, after World War II, it was divided. All right, okay, and because they were fighting to liberate Korea from Japan, right? Both sides occupied Korea after the war, right? Who is both sides? Basically, is your USA on one side and then your Soviets on one side. But both agreed that slowly they will let each other become vote for their own government. But the point is, the USA wants this side and the whole of Korea to become democratic or capitalist system. But then this side wants the whole of Korea to become communist, right? So it was agreed in Potsdam. It was agreed in the conference, right, that they will allow this place to have sovereignty and free elections. All right, the USA agreed to free elections, but the Soviets did not. So the Soviets, instead of free elections, they put their own puppet government inside, led by none other than Kim, right? The leader Kim, who became the leader of the North side, strongly influenced by communism. But in the West side, the USA had their elections, but they put someone who is very anti-communist. He's very aggressive, and his name is Rhee. All right, so this is the whole background of the story. And then the Cold War happened, right, in which the Soviet Union and USA both vying for interest, right? Warsaw Pact, NATO, everything happened to show that both of them were interested in increasing their influence. And the first step to increasing your influence in Asia was through Korea. So that is when the Soviet Union saw this as an opportunity to get communist influence inside of Korea itself. So initially they didn't. In 1949, tensions were running high, but they did not want, they did not want to invade yet, to support Kim's. Kim made many requests. Kim made many requests to unify the whole of Korea under communist influence. Soviet Union did not want that too because they were still war weary. They were just experiencing the end of war. They didn't want to fight another war. But all this changed in 1949 because many things happened. Right, China became communist, so now you have an ally to help you to fight. In some cases, they will help you to send troops, right? So they signed the treaty, the Sino-Soviet treaty, to solidify their alliances, right? So now Stalin knew that he has a backing of China if ever he was interested in agreeing to Kim's request to invade and unify Korea, right? And another thing was that the bomb, right? The Soviets tested their bomb. So now they were more not so afraid of going into Korea. On the US, on the other hand, not really interested in Korea because they were more interested in Japan, liberating Japan and getting them back up. Okay, USA bombed Japan, so to make up for it, right, and to also have some bases inside Japan, they decided to focus more on this country instead. So, in the Defense Secretary Atchison's memo, he actually said that Korea was not really in the defense perimeter of of the US. So all this pushed Soviet Union to start to support Kim's plea to go inside Korea, right? So again, my map of Korea. So North Korea, under the Soviet support, was the first one to start the skirmish. So they went and they pushed, right? But you must know that the Soviet Union was not directly involved in sending troops although they were involved in sending their intelligence, right? Their intelligence as well as their weapons, right? The equipment sent by the Soviet Union. Okay, they managed to push the South Korean forces all the way to Busan, right? One more step to victory and unifying the whole Korea under the communist flag. And because communism tensions between capitalism and communism are running high, the US now saw this as a direct threat to their influence and as a direct threat to a free society, the capitalist free society. So they and a direct threat to their role as leaders of the United Nations, right? As leaders of the UN. So they decided to make a plea to the UN to send a combined force led by General MacArthur, right? To send a combined force to go inside Korea itself to push the communists back so that Korea will not fall under communist rule. Okay, so that's the story, and then they managed to do it. They pushed Korea all the way back here to the edge of Korea and separated from China by this Yalu River. So China is here, and when this happened, the general, right, he got very proud of himself, Mr. MacArthur, and he casually commented that, hey, why not we send a bomb, right? We send a bomb to China so that we can actually don't just stop at getting Korea free from communist rule, but we can now get China free from communist rule as well. And it's a great victory. But of course, Truman, the US president at that time, he said, no, I'm having none of this. So he dismissed MacArthur. MacArthur was dismissed, right? But that was too late because China already saw this as a threat to their sovereignty. So China saw this as a threat to their sovereignty, so they decided to send their troops, and send their troops they did to reinforce the North Koreans, and they pushed back all the way back to the 38th parallel again, where they had a stalemate. They fought for a while, and finally they achieved peace by signing the agreement to demilitarize the zone, right? And so until today, you have the DMZ zone over there. So that, in effect, is the Korean War in a nutshell. It is 1950 to 1953. It's known as the Forgotten War. So please use this knowledge to understand the background behind the sources that you read tomorrow. Alright, so what are the type of sources that you may get? So number one, who make the source, right? You may get sources from the American sides, right? During the war. So if you get sources from American side during the war itself, of course, main type of messages, it will be condemning North Korea, right? Condemning the Soviet Union because they were the ones who started the thing, right? And you know, Soviet Union did not send troops; they sent weapons. But America will convince the public, the general public, that they are directly involved, and they will make a big hoo-ha about it and say that this is all a ploy to spread communism to the world, because the world was facing this communist crisis all around the world. This was a talking point for everyone. So although this is just minor support, but it was highlighted again in all the propaganda sources to say that communism is on the rise, communism, right? So we need to go into support. So most likely this will be at a time when the South Korean troops are pushed back all the way to the island of Busan, right? So if you get a purpose question on this, most likely it is to get the troops, get US support or get UN support to push back the troops, right, out of Korea, the communist troops out of Korea. So that's for American sources. Alright, another way they can ask you is through psychological warfare. Means they are writing not to Americans, but they are writing to the other side. So who are the other side? North Koreans, right? You must deflate the North Koreans so that they will surrender and they will change sides and go to support the Americans. So how will you make them change sides? Very simple. Just tell them that you are fighting a war, right? Soviet Union say that they are supporting you in this war, but in actual fact, they're just taking advantage of you to spread their own influence because you are just a puppet to them. So why not be free? Be free. How do you be free? You support the US and that will give you the freedom. Alright? So this is a psychological warfare. Now the same thing can be said of the other side, right? If it is a Soviet source or if it is a Chinese source, okay, both will say Americans are the imperialists, right? Imperialists or the aggressors who just want to conquer and conquer and conquer and conquer. Why? Because you need to get support from your troops, right? So either to get support from your troops right? There's one way, or the second objective could be to send these messages out to the South Koreans, right? So you must think in this point in time of history, North and South Korea are not that different, and North Korea, to the surprise of you, right, are prospering a little bit more than the South Koreans, because South Koreans also they were under Ri, right, and Ri was a very harsh kind of similar to a dictator type of person. So it was quite attractive, right? If you say the Americans are the imperialists, they are the aggressors, they are going to take advantage, right? You send it to the South Koreans, they might believe it, and when they believe it, they will defect to the Soviet side. Okay? So that is one way to put it. Alright. Then the next wave of sources, right? So this is during the war itself. So before the war, what type of sources will you get? You will get things to deal with motivations for the war, right? You'll get sources related to motivations for the war from each side, the USA and the Soviet Union. So you will get things like Kim asking for help. And when you do that, you can say that North Korea is to blame for the war, right? Kim asking for help. Or you can also get sources to show that the Americans were pacifists, right? They didn't want to get involved in the war, right? That's why the Soviet decided that they could attack. Okay? Or you can get sources to deal with Cold War, to deal with the Cold War ideas that are spreading around the world, and hence Korea is important, right? Or you can get sources to deal with the plans, right? This is to justify their invasion or get people to be on board with the invasions by speaking of the plans. Okay, the plans to invade, plans to be aggressive, plans, all these things. So you must know. And finally, the last kind of sources you can get is after war. After war, so most of the sources based on past year questions are meant to justify the war. Right? Because in the end, it ended in the stalemate. Everybody died, but it still ended in a stalemate. So you have to justify the war. Right? So each side can blame one another, right? The Soviets can blame America for the war, but on the flip side, the Soviets can also blame Kim, right, and North Korea for the war by saying that, hey, it's nothing to do with us. Kim wanted help, we just sent that help there. So trying to push the blame away, the responsibility of this war away from them. So in the same way, same thing can happen. American can use it to say that, right, it's purely defensive. Our involvement is defensive. Okay, so the question now is whether involvement was a protective measure, defensive measure to safeguard the sovereignty of the country, or was it aggressive? So this may form the basis of your reliability questions, right? Or was it aggressive measure, right? Was it instigated By who? Who instigated this thing? Alright, so there's your context knowledge. I think I've covered just about everything. So use this as a revision again. And all the best for your source-based question.